Rain pressed against my window the way it always did in October, quiet, persistent, impossible to ignore. I stood in my Somerville kitchen, fingers curled around a mug I had already forgotten to drink from, watching headlights smear across wet pavement below. My body reacted before my mind caught up. Tight chest, shallow breath. 11 years later, the rain still remembered me. The envelope waited on the table like it had been there all night. Thin paper, nursing home return address, Harborview long-term care. I knew whose handwriting it was before I opened it. My father's letters had always leaned to the right, like they were trying to leave before they finished speaking. The first line landed harder than I expected. He had lost words since the stroke. He was afraid of losing the rest. He needed to apologize while he still could. I folded the letter once, then again, slower this time, as if creasing it carefully might keep it from cutting any deeper. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team of the channel Revenge World, inspired by real-life situations to convey lessons about family, emotion, and human values. All characters and events are illustrative. I had not spoken to my father in 11 years, not after the night he locked the door, not after the storm, not after everything that followed. The rain tapped harder. Impatient now. My phone buzzed on the counter. A notification from a stranger somewhere. Another story queued up. Another voice asking to be heard. If you're listening to this, stay with me. Some stories don't start where they break. They start where you finally look back. I slid the letter into my bag. Not as forgiveness, not as permission. Just proof that the past had found a way to knock again. The moment I stepped inside, I knew the house had already chosen a side. My backpack slid off one shoulder and landed near the door. No one told me to pick it up. My father stood in the center of the living room, rigid, both hands planted on the table as if bracing for impact. Spread between his fingers were things that did not belong together. Cash, orange prescription bottles, printed pages of text messages. Vanessa stood close to him, careful not to touch. Her eyes were red, her arms folded tight across her chest. The posture looked protective. The expression practiced. We found everything today. Her voice carried first, soft and steady, like she was delivering bad news to a stranger instead of pointing a blade at her sister. I tried to handle it quietly. I really did. My father didn't look at me. His attention stayed on the papers, on the proof he had already memorized. Money has been disappearing for months. His words came clipped, rehearsed. I didn't want to believe it. I took a step forward. That isn't mine. Vanessa inhaled sharply, like the denial physically hurt her. Maya, please. Lying now only makes it worse. From the kitchen doorway. Linda watched with her arms crossed. Her silence filled the room more completely than any accusation. My father reached beneath the papers and lifted a single form, a psychiatric intake packet, blank signature line at the bottom. I spoke to a facility this afternoon. The confession landed without shame. They said early intervention matters. The air left my lungs. I was trying to protect you, he continued, voice rising with conviction. If you cooperate, this doesn't have to get ugly. Vanessa's gaze finally met mine, calm and unblinking. 30 days, she murmured, just loud enough. That's all it takes. Something in the room shifted then. This wasn't concern. This was strategy. And I realized the verdict had already been written long before I walked through the door. My father held out his hand, not for comfort. For my phone. Give it to me. His voice carried the weight of a decision already finalized. You're not in a position to negotiate. I tightened my grip on the strap of my backpack. I didn't do this. You know that. His jaw clenched. What I know is that this family is falling apart, and I won't let you drag us down with you. Vanessa stepped closer, careful, measured. This is temporary, she offered, the word shaped like mercy. Take the night to calm down. Think about getting help. Linda shifted in the doorway, eyes flicking toward the hall, then away. Silence, again, choosing a side. The front door swung open. Cold air rushed in, sharp and immediate. Rain followed, uninvited. "You're leaving," my father declared, "until you're ready to cooperate." I took one step back. "It's pouring. That's not my problem anymore." The phone slipped from my pocket into his hand. The door stayed open just long enough for me to cross the threshold. Then the lock clicked. One sound. Final. I stood on the porch with nothing but a backpack and the echo of his words. The house glowed warm behind the glass. I turned toward the street and started walking. I walked because standing still felt dangerous. The rain soaked through my sneakers within minutes, the cold creeping up from the pavement and settling in my knees. My backpack bounced against my spine with every step, heavier than it should have been, filled with books that suddenly felt useless. Algebra notes, a notebook with half-finished homework, proof that a normal day had existed an hour ago. A car slowed as it passed. The window cracked open just enough for a voice to spill out. "You okay out here? I'm fine." The answer came automatically. Too fast, too practiced. The car moved on. My hands stopped feeling like mine. Fingers stiffened, then faded, as if my body were quietly reclaiming them. I tried to focus on numbers instead. 5.3 miles. That was the distance to my grandmother Grace's house. I counted steps in groups of 10, then lost track and started over. My phone should have been buzzing in my pocket. It never was. The world narrowed to breath and movement. Inhale, exhale, one foot, then the other. I told myself I could sit for a second, just to steady the shaking. Just until the dizziness passed. A metal guardrail appeared ahead, blurred at the edges. I leaned toward it, reaching out for balance, but my knees folded instead. The ground rose fast, cold, hard. Somewhere far away, I heard my name. Or maybe I imagined it. My cheek pressed against wet asphalt, and the rain felt warmer than it should have. Then everything went quiet. Warmth returned in fragments, a blanket tucked too tight, the steady beep of a machine keeping time for me. When my eyes opened, a woman sat in the chair beside the bed, posture straight, hands folded like she was waiting for permission to act. "You're safe." Her voice carried calm authority, not comfort. "An ambulance brought you in." Hypothermia was starting. My throat burned. I wasn't running. Her head tilted slightly, the way people do when they already understand. "I know." She introduced herself as Helen Park, retired Child Protective Services, 32 years. The number landed heavier than reassurance. Experience like that didn't waste words. "They don't throw kids out in storms unless something is wrong at home," she continued, eyes steady on mine, and storms don't lie. Footsteps approached, familiar ones. My chest tightened. The door opened and my father filled the doorway. Vanessa close behind him. He stopped short when he saw the room. Helen, a uniformed officer, a woman with a clipboard already writing. "What is this irritation?" edged his voice. "This is a family matter." Helen rose without hurry. "Not anymore." Vanessa's gaze flicked to me, then away. "We were just trying to help her," she offered, careful, controlled. The officer's tone cut clean through the room. A minor was found unconscious on Route 6A without a phone or coat. That activates procedures. For the first time that night, my father looked unsure. Helen's voice followed, firm and final. "This conversation happens with witnesses, and it starts now." The woman with the clipboard stepped forward and introduced herself as Sofia Alvarez, CPS investigator. Her tone stayed professional, but her eyes missed nothing. "We're initiating a 72-hour protective hold," she explained, already writing, "until we understand why a minor was expelled into dangerous weather." My father's protest came fast. "You can't do that. She's my daughter." Sophia didn't look up. "Tonight, she's a child found unconscious on a highway." The door opened again. Smaller footsteps this time, but steadier. My grandmother, Grace Lynn, crossed the room with quiet certainty and placed herself between me and my father like it was muscle memory. I'm here. Her voice wrapped around me. You're not going anywhere without me. She turned to Sophia. I'm requesting temporary guardianship. Immediately. Sophia nodded once. An on-call judge will review it within the hour. Vanessa shifted near the wall. This is getting out of control. Grace didn't look at her. No. This is it finally being controlled. My father's shoulders sagged as the words landed. Sophia finished the form and tore off a copy. For the next 72 hours. She continued, contact is restricted. Grace squeezed my hand. 30 days, she murmured under her breath. That's what they wanted. For the first time, the trap was visible. The truth didn't arrive all at once. It unfolded the way careful lies always do. Slow, deliberate, confident no one would look too closely. Grace sat beside my hospital bed that night, her voice low and steady. Your mother planned ahead. She reminded me. She knew she wouldn't be here to protect you forever. 2 trusts, one for Vanessa, one for me, each worth $62,500. Vanessa had received hers the moment she turned 18. Grace didn't need to explain what happened next. Everyone in the family already knew. Mine stayed untouched, locked until adulthood, protected unless a very specific condition was met. Sophia returned the next morning with a thin folder. There's a clause. She explained. Temporary incapacity transfers financial oversight to a guardian. Vanessa's words from the living room echoed back. 30 days. Grace's mouth tightened. That's not concern. That's a countdown. Kyle Weston appeared in the investigation soon after, introduced through bank records and prescription histories. Vanessa's boyfriend. Always polite at family dinners, always talking about opportunities. Sophia's voice stayed clinical as she connected the dots. The bottles came from his prescription. The phone was purchased days before the incident. Grace leaned closer. She didn't panic. She planned. When Vanessa visited the hospital under supervision, her tone carried irritation more than worry. You're blowing this out of proportion. Grace met her stare without blinking. You called your sister collateral. The word landed hard in the room. Vanessa's silence was answer enough. The trap wasn't built overnight. It was assembled piece by piece, with patience, confidence, and the belief that I would never be believed. The investigation stopped being quiet after that. A detective from the Financial Crimes Unit introduced himself 2 days later, pulling a chair close enough that I could see the fatigue under his eyes. We checked the withdrawal your sister reported as stolen. His voice carried no accusation. Just fact. The camera caught the person clearly. Sophia slid a still image across the tray table. Vanessa's face stared back at me, sharp and unmistakable, framed by the ATM timestamp. The time matched a school attendance record already verified. I had been in chemistry class, surrounded by witnesses. Grace exhaled slowly. That's one. The detective continued. Traffic cameras traced her car between the bank and the convenience store. Same afternoon. Sophia picked up the thread. The burner phone was purchased 4 days earlier. Same card. Same car. Kyle Weston's name surfaced again. Heavier this time. Pharmacy records tied the pills to his prescription. A theft report had been filed 3 days after I was expelled. Not before. Too late. Too neat. Grace's voice cut through the room. You don't file paperwork after the crime unless you're covering something. The final blow came with the bank audit. Forged checks. Small amounts at first, then larger. Over 2 years. The total reached $27,400. Sophia closed the folder. This wasn't about fear. This was about control. Weeks later, Kyle was arrested in another state for investment fraud, facing federal charges. Cooperation followed. His messages laid everything bare. Planning sessions, timelines, One line burned itself into memory. She'll never fight back. She's temporary collateral. The court date arrived soon after. Vanessa didn't look at me as she took her seat. She didn't have to. The evidence spoke loudly enough for both of us. The courtroom emptied faster than I expected. Papers gathered. Chairs scraped back. Vanessa remained seated long after everyone else stood, shoulders folded inward, eyes fixed on the table as the weight of a felony conviction settled into her future. 7 years of supervised probation, lifetime restrictions on handling money or vulnerable people, a permanent order keeping her away from me. The damage she caused could be measured now, counted, named. My father didn't follow her out. He stayed behind, staring at the floor as if answers might still appear there. The judge's words echoed quietly in the space between us. Abandonment through negligence. Rights terminated. Responsibility doesn't disappear just because belief feels easier than doubt. Life moved forward anyway. I finished school, built a career, learned what safety actually felt like. Grace reminded me, often and gently, that love shows up in actions, not titles. If this story feels familiar, if parts of it echo too closely, stay with me. Sometimes recognizing yourself in someone else's survival is the first step toward your own. Years later, the room at Harborview smelled faintly of disinfectant and regret. My father looked smaller than I remembered. His apology came haltingly, shaped by a body that no longer cooperated. He spoke about fear, about choosing the path that asked the least of him. I forgive you. The words left me steady, practiced. Relief crossed his face too quickly. That doesn't mean we start over, I continued, pulling a folded emergency thermal blanket from my bag and setting it on the chair beside his bed. This kept me alive when you didn't. Understanding arrived slowly, the way real lessons always do. Forgiveness isn't reunion, it's release. Accountability isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Family isn't who shares your blood, it's who stands between you and the storm. I left without looking back. Outside, the rain had stopped. If you're still here, listening, carry that with you. Some doors close to save you, and some stories only end when you decide you're done carrying them.